it's time for July predictions, because why wait till the end of the month when you can get them now? So if you're not familiar with this and you don't understand how this works, over on the right hand side surrounded by me, this is the Vedic chart. This is actually in the Southern Indian style, and over over that way there, that's going to be the Western chart, and that's going to have your regular Western aspects. However, both of these are using the sidereal zodiac because, I don't know, tropical's okay, but Vedic, I've had more luck with sidereal. But either way, you can do one or the other. I'm not really going to bash one. So I wanted to start this out actually just to remind people that this next full moon is going to be conjunct Saturn. So I'm starting this on the 28th just to show people that if you take a look over here at let's see, Saturn and Pluto here, the sun is actually opposed both of them. And so what that's going to do is make things feel really restricted. This is actually a pretty stressful full moon because you have the sun, Saturn in opposition, and then you got the new moon, or I'm sorry, the moon conjunct Saturn, the full moon, and usually a full moon is just like wanting to end things. So this is actually a lot of people that have planets in conjunction in Gemini and in the sign of Sagittarius, you're going to find things spontaneously come to an end, depending, especially related to the house that this moon is going to be in. So for instance, if this is in your 7th house, this can mean the end of a relationship. If this is in your 9th house, it can mean the end of a vacation or the end of traveling. If this is in your 3rd house, maybe you might finish up a project due to writing. You know, you really got to take the house aspect and really put that into your own context. So this is because this is going to be very, very general. This is more of a mundane astrology, meaning like the whole big picture. This is really what everybody's going to be going through. So starting with that, so that's going to round out the fun time in June. And of course, in a couple of days, like I've said many times, Mars is going retrograde on the 26th, and this retrograde Mars is going to set the tone for July and August, and it's going to be intense. And I'm going to be showing you the new, I'm sorry, what is it, the lunar eclipse coming up at the end of this month. That one's a nasty one, okay? There's a lot of stressful energy, and we'll get into that. But let's see, starting out here on the 1st of the month, really, let's see, we got Mercury here and Rahu and Venus all in the sign of Cancer. And so this is where we've seen all of the lots of emotions. Everybody's running on emotion. Nobody's really using logic right now. It seems to be like something that's in how do I put it? It's in like it's a rarity to see somebody acting in a logical fashion because we've got all this Cancerian energy directly opposed Capricorn, which is actually a pretty logical sign. And when Mars comes into Capricorn and it's direct, what happens is you get a lot of that very direct, logical action. I mean, it's pretty much Mars functions its best. You know, it's pure, raw, moving forward. However, when Mars goes retrograde, it's going to start acting like Mars in Cancer. So it actually becomes debilitated here, which means passive-aggressive energy. It means people, you know, doing really like, for this, it's really the ends. The ends always justify the means because my emotions are the central tenet of what's going on. I'm just, by saying my emotions, I don't necessarily mean mine. I'm talking about just how other people are feeling. So other people are feeling like their emotions are going to be the center of everything and that their emotions need to be validated through this passive aggressive action. And that's how this is going to function. And that's actually not a good thing. So this can lead to stuff like terrorism, fights, violence, violent protests too. We're not talking about, you know, getting together and having a good time. So, you know, this is going to be still going on. And also too, to really make this more difficult, is we have K2. And so when Mars is going retrograde, the nodes are always going retrograde. So when these two happen to be near each other and they're conjunct, this makes the conjunction last for about 2 months. And so this really too can happen with any planets and nodes. Like not too long ago, this happened with, I think, Mercury and Rahu, where they went retrograde together in, I think this was in the sign of Leo. This was a couple years ago, and that was also intense. So intensity. I wish things, oh, and I'll bring in Uranus. I'll bring in Uranus into this in a little bit. All right, moving on. So let's see, not much here going on the 2nd. Also, too, keep an eye here on Jupiter because Jupiter is still in retrograde. Let's see, Uranus is still fine. Uranus is still fine. No retrogrades there. And by the way, one of my policies for retrograde planets is I don't really put too much emphasis on them because the outer planets, meaning the transiterian planets, are retrograde at least half the time. So it doesn't really mean much unless it's conjunct a planet or something like that. So I don't really put too much emphasis into like a retrograde Pluto. Well, Pluto's retrograde at least 50% of the time, so it doesn't really mean anything significant to me. All right, so let's see what we got there. So we're kind of starting to creep up the new moon. We still got Jupiter retrograde. Let's see, moon here in Aries, conjunct Uranus. Hey, if you have a Uranus moon conjunction in the sign of Aries, man, ooh, this is a lot of emotion. So you'll be feeling this transit, but it's got to be at around 8 degrees of Aries. Let's see, Sun here is still in Gemini. So the Venus is Venus is going to be moving into the sign of Leo, which takes on a little more of a selfish kind of love quality, or at least it means love of self. I mean, because really Leo is really, it's ruled by the sun. It's the sign of ego expression. So where you think of Cancer, Cancer is ruled by the moon, and that's almost like pure emotional expression, whereas Leo is almost pure egotistical expression. And sometimes we give a bad name to egotism. It's just really the expression of the self, or the I, the individual. So I'm not putting that down as a bad thing. All right, so moving on. Let's see. So we got the moon moving into Taurus, Mars. Okay, so Mars and K2 are getting closer here. Now check this out. Jupiter just came out of retrograde. Yeah, on this day. So Jupiter's going to be stationing on, let's see, July 10th. And if you have any planets in the sign of Libra around 19 degrees, you need to pay attention to this, especially if you're in your Jupiter Mahadasha, because Jupiter stations are extremely important because they're extremely fortunate. They help you out a lot. I mean, sometimes if Jupiter is debilitated, it can mean, like, for instance, if this were going on Capricorn, sometimes that can mean too much of a good thing. But generally, for us, Saturn is constriction, Jupiter is expansion. So right around this 19 degrees. So let's see if there's any other aspects to this here. So here we got Jupiter by its own lonesome self right here. Looks like it's got a trine to Neptune. It's also got a trine. Oh, okay. So we got a kind of a pseudo grand trine here. It's not that tight. Usually for grand trines, you want like a 3-degree orb. This one's a little bit more about, it's about 4 or 5. So this is a grand trine in the air sign. So this is, if your Jupiter is around here and you're a Libra, this is going to be a great time for intellectual development. I think you'll probably get some of your most creative ideas right now. So you really need to pay attention to that day. All right. So moving on here. Jupiter's moving out of its station. So you kind of see how it stays at 1914 here for a while. So the thing is, with outer planets, when they station, they tend to station for a very long time because they move slower. So Jupiter stations for about 3 days. Mercury stations for like a couple of hours. It's like boom, boom, because of its relative aspect to the sun. All right, so let's see. And oh yeah, and to throw on top of this, Mercury's going to be going retrograde later in the month too, in the sign of Cancer, in the Gandanta, right at the end. So yeah, this month, the beginning is looking a little right up until this point here. I was gonna say I'm not gonna say it's quiet, but it's gonna be a little bit of kind of like status quo from after Mars goes retrograde here. Let's see. So here's what we need to pay attention to. The sun here is ingressing into the sign of Cancer here. And notice how these two are coming very close together, Mars and K2 here in the sign of Capricorn. This is going to amplify things, and this is getting very close to a square between all these Uranus, Mars, K2, the Sun, Rahu, not necessarily Mercury, but Mercury's going to play into this a little bit. Let's see, moving on here. So we're getting close to what's going to be the next lunar eclipse. So let's see, we got Jupiter. Okay, so Jupiter's kind of starting to take off. So you notice how the degrees are starting to go up here. So if you're ever watching a chart, that just kind of indicates the speed of Jupiter. Planetary speed, by the way, is very important. That's how you determine whether a planet is stationary or not. And how that works is a planet moves, depending on whether it's going retrograde or not, it moves a certain amount of time a day. And so what you do is you look at that rate of speed and you can determine how strong a planet is. And a lot of the astrological traditions, a slower moving planet is going to have stronger influence on the chart. And if it's stationary, it's all about that planet. And if you have more of these, man, you're going to really feel that energy more. All right, so let's see, moving on. So not much. Okay, so these two are actually coming into contact. So we need to start really watching out for ourselves when Mars, okay. So Mars and K2 are coming into the same degree on the 19th of July. So the 19th of July is one of the dates that we need to pay attention to because this is when stuff is really going to ramp up. You thought it was bad now or intense right now. Let's just use intensity. Things are going to become more intense around this time. So these two are going to be in the same degree for quite a while, opposed what's coming up here with the sun. And this is really going to deal with the lunar eclipse. And this is going to be a big one. So let's see, I'm just going through here. I don't think I saw anything too significant here other than what I already pointed out. So this is where we need to really start rolling in here to the lunar eclipse. So the lunar eclipse is going to happen on the 27th of July. It's going to be happening during a supermoon. And from what I hear, this is going to be one of the longest lunar eclipses of the year. It's been a while since one that happened this long was this long. So this is going to be a very, very intense lunar eclipse. What does that mean? Okay, so in Vedic, what we do is we look into the nakshatra that the moon is placed in. And this is actually placed in the nakshatra of Shravana, which to me, it's represented by an ear. This means listening to other people. Really, the way I look at this is people are not going to be listening to each other. Nobody gives a shit about what anybody else really has to say. And for you, as a enlightened follower of Vedic astrology, you need to keep this in mind. If you have any planets here in Shravana or anywhere close to this degree, 11 degrees. 11 degrees is going to be, now actually I'm going to say 9 to 11. 9 to 11 degrees are going to be the most intense degrees. And take a look at this formation here. We have Mars, Moon, and Ketu oppose Rahu and the Sun. And look, Mercury just went retrograde. Is this on the day? Okay, yeah, so Mercury's going retrograde on the 25th. So not only do we have these two planets together, we have a Mercury going to be stationing at 29 degrees here in the latter half of Cancer. And when a planet here is stationed at, like, it's, so it's called Gandant. And Gandant really means the, let's see, in Vedic astrology, it's the last and first degree of the border between water and fire signs. So here is Gandant, right here is Gandant, and then right here between Aries and what is this? I'm sorry. Aries and Pisces. That's also considered Gandant. So actually, it's not necessarily. I think it's just the end of the water degrees. That's what it means. So yeah, I mean, not all of these are going to be Earth signs. Oh, actually, no. That's in between water and fire. Okay, well, I just corrected myself. It's between water and fire. Trust me, I know what I'm doing. So take a look at this massively stressful T-square. So we got this going on, and then Uranus is an Aries. Man, this is a recipe for, I'll just say it, it's a recipe for disaster. This is really not a very good placement. So just like all of my predictions, you need to keep your eyes open and just remember that you don't have to engage in anything that you don't want to. So many times now, we're always pulled into things. People are like, you need to come and join me and join my cause. And really, when it comes to things like with Vedic astrology, and especially yoga, we teach three things: detachment, 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 okay? Or awareness, awareness, awareness. Attachment, awareness, put it together how you want. Those are the two things that are really going to save you in this stuff, because if you're detached and you're also aware of what's going on, you can actually make decisions free of the karma that's unfolding in your Vedic astrology chart. And this is so critical to everybody. I can't stress this enough. I mean, you can even, if you're a follower of Western, there's a yacht in here too. So with Venus. So, I mean, and I'm not going to make this a grand cross, but Jupiter's kind of close to being a grand cross, but not really. But it's close. So this is a rough aspect. So yeah, that's gonna really, I think that's gonna be a crescendo for the summer, and then everything else after that will be falling action. So then moving forward close to August here. So yeah, now we got Mercury in retrograde, and we're gonna be dealing with this formation for a little while, because not only is Mars going to be conjunct K2, but Mars still has to station and come out of retrograde and then back up over K2. So yeah, so we're getting to the 31st, and that is all I have for today. So yeah, this lunar eclipse is something that you really need to pay attention to. I mean, very much so. And it's really revolving around the themes of Shravana, which to me is listening to other people, but it's also too very spiritual as well too. So if you have this as like a 12th house combination and you're doing Om chanting and you're trying to listen to the divine sound of Om with Shravana, great time to practice that. So I think in just chanting Om, I'm trying to remember what they call that in Vedic astrology. No, I'm sorry, Kriya Yoga. In Vedic astrology, Om is just Om, but in Kriya Yoga, you know, there's some. I'm trying to remember. It's called the Yogi. It's called the Yogi Mudra, and it's where you chant Om and you close your ears and eyes, and you're trying to pay attention to the Ajna chakra here, and you're trying to see the lights, and you're trying to move your consciousness through that, and you're also trying to hear the sound of Om, which is kind of like a subtle sound that you hear in the background, and you could like start hearing your neurons firing. I mean, guys, when you get really deep into meditation, this is some of the weird shit that happens, but it is real. What they talk about in the Yoga Sutras and stuff like that, it does really happen. It's not fake. So and I'm saying that through my personal experience, but don't take my word for it. Do it for yourself. And if you want to book a consultation, you know where to go. Go to the front page and click on any of those links. Otherwise, have a very safe and happy July. It's going to be a tough month. Hopefully, I'll see you Tuesday. I'll see you then.